Agriculture is more than just planting, growing, producing, and feeding. Over the past few days, I've traveled 4 different agriculture locations, and I've learned many different things, and I've had many great experiences. But the biggest takeaway is that a strong community is important. It is important to be involved with local food production. Thank you, Chairperson. Welcome, honorable judges, ladies, gentlemen, and my fellow 4-H members. The topic that I was presented with today is that it is important to grow local and be involved with local agriculture production, and with that, there are many benefits. Today, I'll be splitting my speech up into 2 main parts. First, I will talk about the 4 locations that we visited as a group, and then I will be talking about how they all share a common theme, and that is a big benefit that they have from being connected to their local consumers and producing locally. The first site that we went to was Blackwell Dairy. Blackwell Dairy was an on-site dairy processing plant that was connected to a farm. It is 1 in 7 in BC, and I met Laura, the owner, and I learned many things about dairy. As someone who's lived in Vancouver, in the big city, all their life, I didn't have much knowledge about cows and dairy, so I learned many things, such as pasteurization and how they separate fat from the different milks. Now, I learned one main thing, and that was community is very important as a dairy farmer. This is achieved in 2 main ways: by selling locally and having a strong connection to your consumer, and also through milk quota systems. Now, I was a little bit new to milk quota systems, and I still have trouble getting my head around it, but I'll try my best to explain it. A milk quota system is when you have a bunch of dairy farmers and a dairy producer. Dairy farmers may face challenges, and milk production may drop. Because of this, it is important to have people to lean on, and that is other farmers. If milk production drops at one farm, other farmers can increase their milk production to make sure an overall production of milk does not fall. So it is very important to have a strong community with your consumers and also other farmers as a dairy farmer. The next location we traveled to was the Stir Kitchen. The Stir Kitchen is a community food hub where everyone is able to access different food technologies and food resources for cooking and storing their food that they may not have access to at their farm or at home. Some of these examples include a deep fryer or an industrial cooker, and all sorts of other food machines and mechanisms that allow producers to prepare their food. They also have storage sites where producers can come in and store some of their produce, and anyone is welcome. That's one of the most important things of the Stir Kitchen, is that it has a strong community, and locals are able to go there and access all of these different resources to produce and store their food. The next location we went to was a farm, and it was called the Butler's Small Agricultural Farm. And the Butler's Farm, it was in the center of Kamloops on an empty piece of land. And it's their goal to be inclusive and to allow everyone to access agriculture. It was wheelchair accessible, and it was on this small piece of land that they were being lent in the center of Kamloops. It wasn't a large farm, but it had many different gardens and many different produce. Everyone was welcome there, and anyone could take whatever they needed, and they'd never turn away someone in need. But they asked that you'd water or weed or do something to give back if possible to strengthen the community that the farm had. Now, I learned that the food was really good there, but also they have a strong connection to the Kamloops community. They achieved this by giving back to some of the people, by donating to food banks, and just allowing everyone to experience the wonders of agriculture. The final farm that we went to was Garden Gate Community Farm. They had this program called the Open Door operating there, and they would run the farm. The Open Door program helped people with mental health issues or mental impairments. They believe that agriculture is the best way to help people, and they would put people before agriculture and produce, and they do this by sort of just making sure it was a great community. They didn't worry about making any profits. They would just have fun with agriculture. So many of the patients that would live in this facility would come out to the farm and garden there for a few hours a day, and there's something really good about growing your own produce and consuming it after. They often would have excess, and then they would donate it to the food bank or other foundations that would help people in need. It was a very sustainable farm, and they didn't use any pesticides for two main reasons. Partially, they believed it was very harmful and it would have a bad impact on the environment, but they also believed it would strengthen community connections and it would bring everyone together. This was shown in an example they talked about, which was a grub beetle infection. They had many grubs and beetles that were killing the plants, and they could have sort of got rid of these animals by using pesticides, but instead they decided to pluck them off by hand, and they used environmentally friendly handmade traps to collect them. So all of these 4 agricultural sites that I visited were a lot of fun, and I learned many things and had many great experiences. But the biggest takeaway is that there are many benefits from producing locally and having good connections to local farmers and consumers. Now, I think the biggest benefit can be summed up in one word, and that is community. Everyone that I talked to felt like they had a strong connection to their community. This was either achieved by milk quotas, where nobody was left behind and farmers supported one another, or having a trust with the consumers and making sure they knew what was in the produce and what was in their milk, and they were explaining everything and making sure they were receiving the best product possible. They also had various locations, such as the kitchens or the gardens that I visited. They had a place where the community could come together. They could consume food, they could produce food, they could prepare food all together, and they worked together and leaned on one another as individuals, as farmers, and as a community. So I believe that agriculture is very important, but it is difficult. There are ups and downs, and there are many challenges that a farmer, a producer, or a consumer may face. But we can take these challenges on together as a community, because that is the biggest benefit of having locally produced food.